Hi, this is Mr. Max. I am doing paper 3 core of 2017 Namibia. I have done paper 1, so it's just going to make more sense in order for me to complete that series. So the first question on that paper is you're supposed to find the square root of 121. Now this is very easy. You just punch it in your calculator, and I hope you don't use the cube root. The answer there should be 11. And now they're saying write down the cube of 2. That means 2 times 2 times 2, which is equal to 8. And find the lowest common multiple of 9 and 12. These are elementary questions. Multiplication means you do the 9 times table and the 12 times table. You realize that the lowest common multiple is 36. The factors of 57. Well, what we like to do with this particular question is we like to ask you whether this number is a prime number. We put it normally on a list of numbers there. And what we realize is a lot of times learners are tending to say this is a prime number. Remember, the way you test for primes is you add the digits of this number. 5 plus 7 gives you 12. And 3 can go into 12. Therefore, this number is not prime. So the factors of this number is 1, 3, 19, and 57. So this is a semi-prime number. E says that in a sale, the cost of a jacket is reduced from 650 to 520 Namibian dollars. You're supposed to calculate the percentage decrease. So first thing you find, what is that actual decrease? And then you put that over the original price, and then you get 20% as an answer. Part F. This is a very interesting question. It always comes. A lot of times students are struggling with it. So the way I like to read this question is I would like to see in what is it that they want me to give me answer. They're saying you're supposed to give your answer in kilometers. So sometimes it's best because this map is actually 1 centimeter on the map is equal to 1 million centimeter in real life. So we can't be talking about 1 million centimeter. So it would be perhaps better if you can change that 1 million to kilometers. Okay? And what I've done here is I've done just that. So 1 kilometer, which I know is 1,000 meter, 1 meter is 100,000 centimeter. So I'm asking myself, what is 1 kilometer equal to? So that I can change this scale to kilometer. So the way I'll change this scale to kilometer is I'll divide 1 million by 100,000. So in the map, or on the map, is 1 centimeter. In real life, is 10 kilometer. This 10 kilometer is equal to 1 million centimeter. So from here, it's actually quite very straightforward to calculate the missing value. And I am supposed to, you can use equivalent fractions, or you can simply just do 10 times what gives you 190, 10 times 19. Because you go from 1 to 19, then you multiply the same with that there. Part 2 of this question, you are given a fraction like this, and they say write each number rounded to the nearest whole number. Now this to the nearest whole number, you look at the 8, makes that a 20. You look at the 9 here, makes this an 8. You look at the 7, makes this a 6. And this 2 cannot change that to a 3, so it remains 2. And this is the particular answer for that question. Then they are saying use your answer that you got here to work out an estimate, whatever that answer will be. Well, that answer is 20. And then you are now asked to calculate your full calculator value, and you must write down everything as it is. So what estimation is trying to teach you here is that you can see that 19.6 is very close to 20. The next question is they say take that answer and now you must round it to 1 decimal place. Obviously it's 19.7. Question 3 is a very interesting question. It says Mary walks from home to the shopping center. When she arrives at the shopping center, her watch shows this time. So this is the time that is shown on her watch. The question is asking write down the time indicated on her watch. As you can see clearly, it's 20 minutes past 1. Now, I refuse to believe that this is in the morning, those early hours in the morning, because who is going to walk to the shopping center early hours in the morning? Then part B says, it took her 1.5 hours to walk to the shopping center. This is the time that she arrives. So we want to find what was the time that she left home. So again, as I did, I took the time that she arrived, subtract by 1 hour 30 minutes. I cannot subtract 30 minutes from 20 minutes. I therefore borrow an hour. So when I borrow an hour, now I have 80 minutes, and I can take away 30 from 80, which gives me 50, and 12 minus 1 gives me 11. So she left home at 11:50, which is 10 minutes to 12. The C part says the distance between the shopping center and Mary's house is 15 kilometers. Now, I have underlined here what you're supposed to calculate, which is the average speed. Now, average speed is calculated by taking the total distance, dividing that by the total time. And 15 kilometers is what we are known to be given, and it took her 1.5 hours. So it's best that you write it as a decimal. It's easier for you to find the correct answer, which is 10 kilometers per hour. So the difference between speed and average speed takes into account the total distance, whether she stopped or not, divided by the total time that she was en route to the shopping center. This is a question on algebra. You're supposed to factorize completely. Now 3 is a common factor. You take out 3 outside the bracket, and b plus 4 is inside the bracket. Then you have a question here, and it involves substitution. They're asking you to calculate the value of p, the whole value of this fraction. Suppose you substitute m for -5 and also n for 3. So you must be careful when you do n. You see that I put -5 in brackets. Obviously, you get an answer of 11. The second part there says you're supposed to make n the subject of the formula. So I like to do some cross multiplication here, but first what I did is I put everything over 1 here, p over 1, and then I'm going to do cross multiplication. And I like to have my n on my left, because it's always best if we can have the variable that we are looking for on the left. So I must now just get rid of that p by simply dividing throughout by p. Part C says you're supposed to solve the following equations. The first equation is linear one, 20 minus 3 times 5 minus 5y equals to 8. So you must be careful when you do the multiplication, because multiplication should be done first. So you realize that I have put a plus here. I know that 3 times 5 is negative 15, but negative 3 times negative y gives you positive 3y. You manipulate that, you should arrive at the answer y equals to 1. The second one here, and this is the question that I like you to understand, that you do not have to multiply out these brackets. Look at your mark. And also for core learners, you do not solve quadratic equation using quadratic equation formula or completing the square method. So the only thing that you do is you take each bracket, let it equal to 0. Because when you multiply two numbers and it gives you a product of 0, it means that one number is equal to 0 or the other number is equal to 0. And now you can actually solve this particular question. In the first instance, x will give you -7. And here I take the 1 over, becomes positive 1. And the second question or answer is x equals to 1/2. So these are the two solutions to the equation. No need again to multiply out the brackets. Question 5, Tonia mixes yellow paint and red paint to make orange paint. The ratio is given as 5:3, 5 parts for the yellow paint, 3 parts for the red paint. Then she has a total of 20 liters of orange paint. How many liters of red paint did she use? So there are a few steps you can do. First, add the parts. Then you find one particular part, 20 divided by 8 gives you 2.5. And you multiply 5 times 2.5 and 3 times 2.5. When you do that, you realize you have already the answers that you're supposed to find. So I've indicated my answer in red here. So I am looking for 7.5 liters. That is what they are using for the red paint. Part B says a 5-liter tin of yellow paint costs $312.50. In a sale, the price is reduced by 10%. So let us calculate what is that particular selling price. So first of all, what I do here is I subtract, because reduction means I cannot use the same percentage. Well, you can then find 90% of what that is, gives you directly the answer, or you can use that method that most of the time the students use. They find 10% of 312.5, And what you do is, a lot of times students leave the answer like this, but you are looking for the selling price, not by what the actual thing reduced by. And you get $281.25. So just make sure, whatever method you use, that you answer the final question. Then she buys 5 liters of tins. So remember, one is going to cost her 281 Namibian dollars and 25 cents. So 2 of them gives you a total of $562.50. Question 6 says a certain school has a total of 600 learners, and 450 of these learners are girls. So now you're supposed to express the number of girls as a fraction of the total number of learners. That is straightforward. You take 450 over 600, that gives you 3/4. Simplest form. Then write the number of boys. So here you're supposed to find the total number of boys. You subtract 600 minus 450, that gives you the number of boys. Then you take the number of boys, you write it over the total learners, which is 600, and you multiply that by 100 because they expect us to give the answer as a percentage, and it's 25%. There are 25 teachers at this school. Write down the ratio of teachers to learners. So let's have a ratio of teachers to learners. You simplify this. Now when you do this particular question, and you can just take your calculator, and that is very easy. You put 25 over 600, and your calculator will give you 1 over 24, and then you simply write this as a ratio like that. So that is actually one of the ways you can do that. Question 7 says this graph here that I'm bringing down shows the line L, which is drawn here. First question, you're supposed to find the gradient of line L. Now, I have done a few questions on this on my channel. So the gradient is, you actually take this distance here. As you can see, it's 1, 2, 3 units. Vertical distance, you divide it by this distance here, which is also 3 units. So if you divide 3 by 3, you get 1. But here's the problem with using this method. So lines that goes in this direction, the gradient is negative. So when the gradient is negative, you need then to realize that that's what you need to do. So when you are using the formula, then when you use the formula, I have done that, and I have chosen 2 particular points. And the points I chose was a point here, the intercepts. This particular point here is a point 0, 3. Then I chose this point here, which is 3, 0. And when I use the formula delta y over delta x, I take 2y values, subtract them. That means 3 minus 0. Okay, equals to 3, and then I take 0 minus 3 equals to negative 3, and then I get my gradient. So when you use the formula, you get to the answer without having to worry about the sign. But when you are using the method of just taking the distance divided by the distances, the vertical by the horizontal distance, you need to know the slope of the line, telling you whether the gradient is positive. In this particular case, the line L is going in a downwards direction, as you can see, top left to bottom right, and its gradient therefore is negative. The second one they say is they give you a table. You're supposed to complete the table of values. This is very easy. So here you have got some missing value of x you're supposed to find. You have got the missing value of y you're supposed to find. So when I do this particular one here, and when x is 0 and I sub it into my equation, I get an answer like, for example, negative 4. When I do the second one, when y is 0, as you can see this equation, I made y 0 and I solve that equation, and I realize that x has to be positive 2, and 2 marks for that particular question. Now here they are asking you on the grid, draw the graph. So let me bring the grid back again. So we are going to draw the graph of the line 2x minus 4. So let me bring back my table. So when you realize what you have here, the points negative 1, 6, these are coordinate points, 0, negative 4, and 2, 0, and 4, 4. So for me to draw this line, I'm going to plot this point starting with the point negative 1, 6, as you can see there. The second point that I'm going to plot is 0, negative 4, which is here. Next point is 2, 0, expected to be here. Remember the first is x, then the y, and 4, 4 will be at that point. You can see they are collinear, so I can now bring my line and I label my equation. And this is what you do when you solve this particular question. So the B part is asking you the equation of the line L, the one that is there, and this particular equation. You're supposed to solve them simultaneously. So the way you solve them is where they actually intersect. And I have brought in arrows there for you to see. So it's not exactly at a point. You have to read from your graph. Okay, you give the x value and then you give the y value. So the expected answer is 2.3, 0.7. This is the particular answer for that question. Question 8 says the diagram shows a kite and all the information is given. The problem I have with this is that you must remember this diagram is not to scale. So this distance and these distances are not actually. It could be that PQ is longer than QR, or it could be that QR is longer than PQ, but it's not to scale. Right, so you have got 9 centimeters here for T to Q and S to T, and P to T is 8 centimeters, and you can see that this particular angle here is 55 degrees. They say you're supposed to complete the following statement. Triangle PSR, so we're talking about this particular triangle here, is congruent to triangle, and we have to fill that in. So what does congruent mean? Well, two polygons are congruent if they are the same shape and size. So if you were to take this particular line here, and suppose that is a folding line, and you fold, you realize that triangle PSR will be superimposed on triangle PQR. It will fit exactly on top of that. We say therefore the two triangles are congruent. Then part 2 says write down the size of angle PRQ, which is this particular angle here, PRQ. What you realize is because these two triangles here are congruent, this particular angle is also going to be 55 degrees. Now they are saying we are supposed to calculate the length of PS. So we have got a right angle triangle here. So you're going to use Pythagoras to calculate this particular value. So to find that value, we're going to use Pythagoras. And because we're looking for the longer side, we are going to add. So what we do is we have got PS squared is equal to 8 squared plus 9 squared using Pythagoras. And I always say put brackets here because depending on the type of calculator you use, if you don't put brackets here, you might get a different answer. So we are dealing with the square root of 145, which is about 12.0 centimeters. They say use trig to calculate the length of SR. So let me bring that particular triangle back. So we are supposed to find this particular distance here. So we've got an angle, we've got a side opposite that angle. So we're dealing with the sine ratio. So the sine of 55, which is a calculator value, and I wrote it to 3 decimal places, and you do cross multiplication. All right, so you can actually find what SR is. And suppose we say to 3 significant figures, SR is obviously 11.0 centimeters. Alternatively, you can just say 9 divided by the sine of 55. You should still get an answer that is 11.0 correct to 3 significant figures. This question is very interesting because they're asking you to calculate the perimeter, so I bring in those missing values here. This is 12 centimeters, this is also 12 centimeters. All right, this is 11 and this is 11. So you see what I mean by the diagram not being to scale, because here it looks like this distance is supposed to be longer than that, but that's not the case because the diagram is not to scale. So you can use this 11 and 12, or you can use the other values that what it actually is, 12.0 blah 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 and 10.9 blah blah blah. Okay, well, you get to an answer of 46 point something, so you can go ahead and write that, but to the correct answer should therefore be 46.1 or 46 centimeters, or accept that as well as an answer. Question 9, a supermarket owner employs 45 workers, and here's a table that shows how their weekly wages are worked out. So 16 workers are getting $100 each, 17 workers are getting $120 each, 7 workers get $140 each, and 5 workers get $170 each. So these 5 workers are the highest paid, and these 16 workers are the lowest paid. So they're asking calculate the total amount paid in wages. So you just multiply these two, add, multiply these two, add, and so on, and you should get that. He pays 5,470 Namibian dollars per week in the total wages for everybody. The B part says, after a good week of sales in the supermarket, the owner then decides to increase the wages of all his workers by 12%. Work out the new weekly wage of each of the 16 lowest paid workers. So you find then, well, there are 2 ways you can do this. You can say, okay, wait a minute, there's an increase of 12%. So 112% times what those lowest paid workers are paid. So now each worker can get $112. I do know that a lot of times students prefer to find 12% of 100, which is 12, and then don't forget then to add that 12 to the 100 to find out how much the workers are paid. Ultimately, the answers are exactly the same. Then they say work out how much more he now pays in wages per week for the 5 highest paid workers. So let us take into consideration, what does he actually pay the 5 workers who are getting $170 each? He pays them $850. So let us take then 112% or 12% increase. How much does he pay them now in the increase? He pays them, 952. Okay, so now that to find how much he pays them now is going to be $102 more than what he used to pay them. He used to pay them 850, all 5 of them. Then he pays them 952. So the difference there is 102, which is how much more he pays. You're supposed to arrange the following numbers in descending order. So remember, descending is from biggest to smallest. This is the first one because you look at the place value, all the units are the same. Then you go to the tens. This is 2 tenths. 1/10, so that one is the biggest one. This one is going to be bigger than that one because they have 200s themselves, but it has got 1,000s, and this one has 0,000s. So therefore, this is the smallest number. So you write then 3.211 is greater than 3.121, which is greater in turn than 3.12. Descending, remember what I said, from largest to smallest. Right, you are given 2 statements here, and you're supposed to choose the correct one. So first of all, work out what's the cosine of 60 degrees. Whether that answer, when you punch it on your calculator, cos of 60, you must make sure your calculator is in degree mode. Whether your answer you get is greater than 3/4. Now, when you do that, you get a half, and a half is definitely smaller than 3/4. So this statement is wrong. So what about the second one? Well, the square root of 100, I know it's 10, and 10 squared is 100. So 10 is definitely smaller than 100. So this is the correct answer, therefore. Okay, this answer is 10, and this answer is 100, and 10 is less than, or it's not equal to. Okay, not equal to 10 squared. Right, Desmond was sponsored $5 per kilometer in a fun run. I can't really say whether a run is fun, but that is what it is. So he's paid $5 per kilometer. He ran 17. So want to find out how much he receives, you simply multiply, and he was paid 85 Namibian dollars. Now, this question here, you're supposed to show all your working 1 1/4 minus 5/12. Well, first of all, I therefore write this as an improper fraction. There are many ways you can do this. Okay, 4 times 1 plus 1, which is 5/3. And I multiply that by 3. The reason why I did that is because the LCM is 12. And then I know that 5 by 3 is 15. And I multiply this, or this is going to be minus 5/12. So I get this as the final answer. So we need to see this in order for you to get a mark. Right, this particular question, I have done it and solved it in a few ways. They are saying we are supposed to use the parallelogram and answer the following questions. Measure and write down the value of angle ADC. So you take your protractor and you measure then from the 0 inside. Remember, this is an acute angle, and you should realize you get something like 68 degrees. The second question says you're supposed to construct a locus of points that are the same distance from C to D. So we're looking for a particular line that is going to cut DC in half. All right? inside. So we are using obviously your pair of compass, and you're going to draw yourselves a line. You open it slightly more than half the distance. You do the same on the other side, and where they intersect, then you draw a line. Okay, and when you draw the line, you should realize that that is the line, that is the locus of points that are the same distances away. Remember, this is not to scale, all right, but you should get a general idea of how to do this. I have done these questions up differently, but they all have to be done on the same diagram. The second part says that you're supposed to construct the bisector of angle ABC. You are supposed to cut this angle in half. So you use your compass again. You then, with your compass, draw yourselves an arc like that. And then you put your compass here and here. Now you can decide to use the same radius. When I say same radius, I'm saying the same distance from there to there, or slightly different or smaller. All right. And you then put it here and here, and then where they meet, you take your ruler and you join that particular line, and you would have cut that angle in half for 2 marks. And the third question was asking us to find the locus of points which are 4 centimeters from C inside. So 4 centimeters from C means you're supposed to draw could be a whole circle, or just, inside there, 4 centimeters, circle with radius of 4 centimeters. So what I did there is 4 centimeters through and through, so we expect this particular drawing. So all of these questions you do on the same diagram, not differently like what I did. It's just because of explaining purposes that I have done this. Well, the way they mark it, they will accept whether you give an answer of 69 degrees or 67 plus or minus 1 degrees. That could be the error we can work with. Then you get 2 marks, for correct line, correct arcs in part B. So you should not, and I repeat, you should not erase your arcs. The same with the second part. And then part B, you should have the correct arcs there. Correct answer only. So make sure that you do not miss that particular stuff when you are asked that question. Question 12, the table shows a summary of devices used by 90 people to find some information on the internet. So as you can see from this table, 35 people, remember this is 90, so 35 of the 90 are using cell phones, all right? That represents 140 degrees. 12 people are using a tablet. 25 people are using a laptop, 18 people are using a desktop computer, so all of them is 90. There are some missing values here. So we need to complete the table. So we take 25 over the 90 and multiply by 360 degrees because we are looking for the angle. So we realize that this angle is 100 degrees. I can do the same, or I can add these and subtract from 360, doesn't matter. All right, 18 over 90, and then you should get 72 degrees. So this is how that particular question is answered. The B part says the ages of people using tablets are given below. Now, if you count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people. They are saying you're supposed to write the mode, which age here is the one that appears the most. By looking at it, I see 25 appears twice. No other number appears twice or 3 times, so 25 therefore is the mode. Then they say the range, you take the highest value. It's already a range, which means I'm fine. 56 minus 17, that gives me 39. The mean means you must add all of them. Then you divide that by 12. So when you do that, you get 405 divided by 12, which is equal to 33.75. Then from this group of 90 people, one person is chosen at random. You're supposed to find the probability that the person uses a tablet, okay? So we know that 12 people are using a tablet out of 90, so that simplifies to 2/15. Then what is the probability that the person does not use the internet? Now, well, all of them are using the internet, all the devices that they have there, so the answer there is 0. The grid shows figures A, X, and W. You're supposed to reflect this particular figure in the y-axis. So let me bring that line here. The y-axis is here. So we're going to reflect it. So you see that this particular point is 2 units. So I'm going to put it here as well. This particular point is 1, 2, 3 units. So I'm going to go again 1, 2, 3. So let me just see. So it's 1, It's going to be 1, 2, 3, and so on. So this point, how far is this point from the mirror line? It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So its reflection will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so on. So that is what the shape is, and that is where you draw it. So you can do that. The reflection is very easy and straightforward, and you label it B. Now we're supposed to rotate figure A about this point, and we label it C. We rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, which that direction, okay, or 270 degrees anti-clockwise. So when you do that, obviously what I realize is this longer part is going to make a 90-degree angle here, so this 2 must be here, okay, and the shape will now obviously look like it stands upright like that. And I label it C. Describe fully the transformation which maps x onto w. Well, it's an enlargement. Okay, it's going to be large. And you want to now to find the scale factor. How bigger is this one here? So you take this distance here, you divide it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You divide it by 2. These distances are no good because you'll need Pythagoras to find those distances. You can even take this distance here from here, 1, 2, divided by 1. Okay, so realize the scale factor is 2. Now there's one more thing that you need, and that is the center of enlargement. So you take your ruler and your pencil and you draw a line, and you do the same on the opposite. All right, you can also do that here, but here where they meet, obviously, that is the center, and the center of rotation is this particular point here, which is going to be the point 1, -4. Thanks for watching the presentation. I hope that you have learned quite a lot. And paper 3, remember, try the paper on your own before you work out the questions, and then you have a look at the video, and then you can pause the video wherever you get stuck. So those learners who are doing core, you can join my Google Classrooms, and the code for you to join my Google Classroom is here. I have loaded a lot of material on core there that I'm doing with my students. Thank you.